On April 8, 2024, the Ukrainian elite unit Shadow successfully neutralized a Russian tank equipped with electronic warfare systems capable of countering drones. The vehicle's jamming system had reportedly been neutralized beforehand with the help of artillery, allowing the drones to come into action. Soldiers from the 24th Mechanized Brigade, also known as the Lions, reported challenges during mechanized assaults, particularly due to the Russian forces' use of drone jamming systems on their tanks. It was only after the destruction of several units by artillery that it was possible to use the drones, explained the soldier. This footage highlights the sophisticated electronic battlefield that has emerged in the conflict between Ukraine and Russia. The ability of systems to neutralize the advantage provided by unmanned aerial vehicles, UAVs, underscores the need for continuous innovation in military tactics and technologies. Drones represent a significant danger on the battlefield today, and means of countering them are emerging worldwide. These systems are designed to jam the operation of first-person view (FPV) drones, a crucial asset in modern warfare. A soldier from the brigade shared a vivid account of a mechanized assault near Avdiivka, where Russian tanks equipped with electronic warfare capabilities jammed Ukrainian FPVs, rendering them unusable. During one of the mechanized assaults near Avdiivka, there were O systems on the Russian tanks, which jammed absolutely all of our FPVs. It is equipped with standard armor reinforced by explosive reactive armor type Prelict, designed to deflect and mitigate the effectiveness of enemy projectiles. In addition to this, the T-90M has a metal mesh anti-RPG and bar armor, increasing its resilience to anti-tank attacks. The design of its protection is thus intended to offer maximum survivability on the battlefield. Furthermore, the tank here has been equipped with various modifications due to battlefield exigencies. The jamming systems implemented here only function properly when a certain number of them are active. The neutralization of some of the jammers allowed the drones to enter the scene, showcasing their effectiveness as we know it today. The Russians will undoubtedly continue to develop techniques to counter Ukrainian drone strikes. Even here, with a cage and jamming system, the Russian tank was destroyed with the help of drones. However, it is worth noting that the vehicle was abandoned before destruction, likely due to artillery fire and the arrival of massive drones. The video, which bears the insignia of Ukraine's 60th Mechanized Brigade, appears to show a hit on a T-72B3M over 2022 tank with a large improvised EU system. Rob Lee, a senior policy fellow at the Foreign Policy Research Institute, wrote on X, formerly Twitter, Ukraine has regularly used drones to attack Russian tanks, strike trenches, destroy equipment, and target soldiers. Ukraine also claims to have used sea drones to target Russian warships in the Black Sea. But while Russia has enjoyed an advantage in the field of electronic warfare so far, such systems are often not installed on armored vehicles on the front lines, making them easy to attack, Ukrainian soldiers recently told the New York Times. That's backed up by a February report from the think tank the Institute for the Study of War, which said that Russian military bloggers had slammed Russian commanders for failing to equip armored vehicles with the systems. This crude-looking Russian electronic warfare system could be highly problematic for Ukraine's drone operators. Electronic warfare uses the electromagnetic spectrum, including signals like radio, infrared, or radar, to disrupt an enemy's ability to use those signals itself. According to defense manufacturer Lockheed Martin, it has played an increasingly important role in the war due to the prevalent use of drones by both sides. Even more troubling for Ukraine is that while the T-72B3M system may look somewhat crude to the untrained eye, it appears to be effective. Lee shared images of the tank and its EU system, which, he wrote, reportedly was effectively countering a large number of FPVs operating with different frequencies before it was stopped. Russia's lead in EU has also put a strain on Ukraine's supply of drones. The footage, widely circulated online and attributed to Ukraine's 28th Mechanized Brigade, appears to show a Ukrainian-operated explosive drone barrel into a single-story building through a window before an explosion rips through the structure. A longer version of the clip, posted by the 28th Mechanized Brigade, looks to show footage from the FPV drone heading for the structure, before cutting to the feed from another airborne drone.
There was excellent news from the Donetsk direction, namely, soldiers of the 28th Separate Mechanized Brigade showed a moment filmed by a drone showing a daring attempt by Russian forces to pull back their damaged tank on the line of combat contact with the help of an armored repair and recovery vehicle near the village of Nikolaevka. Here's a detailed breakdown of the events depicted in the video. The first footage shows an armored recovery vehicle trying to evacuate a previously damaged Russian Tu-72 tank. The drones also conduct reconnaissance, scanning the area for remaining Russian soldiers. And at the end of the video, the Russian army makes one last attempt, but in the end they lose a tank and an armored recovery vehicle. In this case, kamikaze drones played a decisive role in preventing the Russians from trying to pull back their damaged equipment. There was excellent news from the Donetsk direction, namely, the fighters of the Ostry-Kartsy unit showed the moment of the destruction of the Russian Ural truck, which was transporting ammunition to the artillerymen closer to their firing positions. It is reported that the Ukrainian military showed one of the examples of the successful use of a conventional FPV drone, where it destroyed a full Ural truck transporting ammunition to its artillerymen. The Ukrainian military without hesitation stopped the truck using an FPV drone, thereby complicating the ammunition supply chain within the Russian army. And most importantly, it significantly affects the front line. There was excellent news from the Donetsk direction, namely, soldiers of the 28th Separate Mechanized Brigade showed the moment how a Ukrainian tank destroys a building with Russian drone operators in the Bakhmut direction near Kurdyumka. The video reportedly shows the moment a Ukrainian tank successfully destroys a building housing Russian drone operators. The destruction of the building housing the Russian drone operators is aimed at eliminating critical resources and threats to Ukrainian forces. This not only causes material damage to the enemy, but also weakens its ability to conduct reconnaissance and attack using unmanned systems. This incident provides important lessons for future operations of the Ukrainian military, highlighting the importance of using armored vehicles to destroy key enemy assets and weaken their combat capability. It also highlights the need to continually monitor and neutralize threats posed by enemy unmanned systems. There was excellent news from the Donetsk direction, namely, the Ukrainian military showed the moment how Ukrainian FPV drones were able to unexpectedly stop two enemy infantry fighting vehicles that were not expecting an attack from above. The Ukrainian FPV drone's first strike was reportedly tragic when it crashed into a Russian armored vehicle. This point highlights the dangers and risks associated with the use of unmanned vehicles in combat conditions, especially in the context of possible collateral casualties among infantry. A second FPV drone successfully strikes a second Russian infantry fighting vehicle, resulting in its destruction. There was excellent news from the Donetsk direction, namely fighters of the Wild Hornets unit showed video footage of Russians hiding in a sewer pipe after an unsuccessful assault. But a Ukrainian FPV drone found them there and eliminated everyone. It is reported that the appearance of Russian fighters in a sewer pipe after an unsuccessful assault indicates their attempts to hide and organize defense from the incident. This shows that Ukrainian forces successfully repelled the attack and forced the enemy to such an extreme decision. The decision to use a Ukrainian FPV drone to detect and eliminate Russian fighters in a sewer pipe is an example of the effective use of modern technology in combat conditions. This case highlights the importance of unmanned systems in reconnaissance and attack on targets located in hard-to-reach areas. There was excellent news from the Donetsk direction, namely fighters of the 47th Separate Mechanized Brigade and operators of the Strike Drones Company unit showed how the Russian drone jamming system, which was installed on an armored vehicle, is not able to protect its armored vehicles. The beginning of the video reportedly shows an abandoned Russian armored vehicle, an infantry fighting vehicle, with a drone jammer installed on top. This equipment, designed to protect against drone attacks, is a key element of the analysis. The video illustrates the growing role of drones in modern combat operations and highlights the need for continuous improvements in defense against them. This is a reminder of the importance of adapting defense measures to evolving threats and the need to invest in modern defense technologies. There was excellent news from the Donetsk direction, namely Ukrainian military personnel showed the moment how a Russian infantry fighting vehicle, together with infantry, was going to break through the Ukrainian defense line in the vicinity of Novomikhailivka, but something clearly did not go according to plan.
Russian Defense Ministry report on the progress of the special military operation. In response to the Kiev regime's attempts to damage the oil, gas, and energy facilities of the Russian Federation, the Russian armed forces launched a massive strike tonight by air and sea-based high-precision long-range weaponry, as well as unmanned aerial vehicles at the facilities of the Ukrainian fuel and energy plant. The goal of the strike has been achieved. All the targets have been engaged. The strikes disrupted the work of the Ukrainian military industry enterprises, thwarted the transfer of reserves to combat zones, and made it difficult to supply fuel to the AFU troops and military units. In Kupiansk's direction, units of the Zapad group of forces took more advantageous lines and inflicted losses on units of the AFU 103rd Territorial Defense and 13th National Guard brigades close to Kruglyakhovka-Kharkov region and Serebryanka Donetsk People's Republic. The AFU losses amounted to up to 35 Ukrainian troops, 2 armored fighting vehicles, 3 motor vehicles, 1 U.S.-made 155 mm 109 Paladin self-propelled artillery system, 1 152 mm Akatsiya self-propelled artillery system, 1 152 mm D-20 howitzer, and 1 122 mm D-30 howitzer. In Donetsk direction, units of the YUG group of forces improved the situation along the front line and inflicted fire damage on manpower and hardware of AFU 54th Mechanized, 46th Airmobile, 79th and 80th Air Assault Brigades near Belogorovka, Ostroy, Konstantinovka, Krasnogorovka, and Verkhnekamenskoye Donetsk People's Republic. The AFU losses were 520 Ukrainian troops, 3 armored personnel carriers, and 4 motor vehicles. In the course of the counter-battery warfare, 1 U.S.-made 155 M777 howitzer, 1 U.S.-made 105 M119 gun, 1 152 mm Stabi gun, 1 122 mm Vostok self-propelled artillery system, as well as 2 Nota electronic warfare stations were eliminated. In Avdiivka direction, units of the center group of forces have improved the tactical situation and repelled 8 counterattacks of assault groups of AFU 25th Airborne, 71st Jaeger, 59th Motorized Infantry, 24th, 47th, 115th Mechanized Brigades near Pervomyskoye, Novokalinovo, Novobakvatovka, Umanskoye, and Berdichi Donetsk People's Republic. The AFU losses amounted to up to 275 Ukrainian troops, 2 tanks, 2 infantry fighting vehicles, and 2 pickup trucks. In the course of the counter-battery warfare, one Polish-made 155mm Krab self-propelled artillery system, one 152mm Stabby howitzer, two 122mm Gvozdika self-propelled artillery systems, and one 122mm D-30 howitzer were eliminated. In South Donetsk direction, the Vostok Group of Forces units improved the situation along the front line and inflicted fire damage on units of AFU 58th Motorized Infantry, 128th Territorial Defense Brigade close to Yerzhinoy and Makarovka Donetsk People's Republic. The AFU lost up to 105 Ukrainian troops, 3 motor vehicles, one US-made 155 M777 howitzer, as well as one Nota electronic warfare station. In Kherson direction, units of the Dnieper Group of Forces inflicted fire damage on manpower and hardware of AFU 128th Mountain Assault, 121st Territorial Defense Brigades near Lobkovoy-Zaporozhye region and Nikopol-Dnepropetrovsk region. The AFU losses amounted to up to 35 Ukrainian troops, 5 motor vehicles, one US-made 155 M777 howitzer, and one 152 mm Jiatsin B-towed howitzer. Operational tactical aviation, missile troops, and artillery of the Russian groups of forces have engaged 3 depots of missile, artillery, and aviation ordnance, one's 125 anti-aircraft missile launcher, as well as AFU manpower and hardware in 112 areas. Air defense systems shot down 266 Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles, 4 HIMARS and Uragan MLRS projectiles, as well as 3 US-made JDAM aerial guided bombs. In Avdiivka direction, the units of the Center Group of Forces have improved the tactical situation and repelled 11 counterattacks of the AFU's assault groups. The AFU losses amounted to up to 395 Ukrainian troops, 3 armored fighting vehicles, 6 motor vehicles, one 152 mm Stabby howitzer, and one 122 mm Gvozdika self-propelled artillery system. Air defense systems shot down 172 Ukrainian unmanned aerial vehicles, 3 French-made Hammer aerial guided bombs, and 2 HIMARS and Uragan MLRS projectiles during the day. The Russian Defense Ministry shows Su-25 ground attack aircraft, Zapad Group's flamethrower crews, Grad MLRS crews, Pacific Fleet snipers, T-80 BVM tanks, Center Group's assault detachments, Dnieper Group's Fagot TGM teams, Vostok Group's Jiatsin its battery, and Lancet loitering munition in action within the special military operation. Military engineers of Yasny Strategic Missile Formation organized distribution of drinking water to residents of hard-to-reach areas of Orenburg region affected by the flood. Units of the Center Group of Forces continue to perform tasks in Avdiivka direction of the special military operation. The group's artillery and aviation engaged 380 identified enemy targets, including 52 strongholds and more than 80 field artillery positions. The AFU losses were more than 395 troops, 1 Gvozdika self-propelled artillery system, 1 M-Stabby howitzer, 1 120 mortar, 3 armored fighting vehicles, 6 motor vehicles, 2 UF control posts, 7 unmanned aerial vehicles, and 1 JDAM aerial bomb were neutralized. In total, 583 airplanes and 270 helicopters, 2355 unmanned aerial vehicles, 500 air defense missile systems, 15,756 tanks and other armored fighting vehicles, 266 combat vehicles equipped with MLRS, 818 field artillery cannons and mortars, as well as 287 units of special military equipment have been destroyed during the special military operation.
This shows the problem that an autonomous weapon may get distracted from its valid target and start tracking a civilian vehicle or innocent bystander. Human-directed weapons also hit the wrong targets, but clear rules of engagement should minimize the risk, and where civilians are killed, there is clear accountability. This situation is murkier with autonomous weapons. These advanced drones are designed to seek out and destroy enemy targets with pinpoint accuracy, giving Ukraine a crucial edge in the ongoing battle against Russian forces. The deployment of these drones marks a significant development in Ukraine's defense strategy, showcasing the country's commitment to innovation and technological advancement in the face of adversity. These drones mark a significant advancement in modern warfare, as they can lock onto targets using machine vision without the need for human pilots. "10 seconds after impact, a violent secondary explosion rocks the tank from the inside, engulfing it in flames. This demonstrates the devastating impact these drones can have on enemy targets. In the video, a first-person view attack drone with automatic target recognition is seen homing in on a Russian tank from a long distance. Even after losing the video link, the drone successfully completes its attack, demonstrating its autonomous capabilities. These autonomous hunter-killers are set to revolutionize modern warfare, providing Ukraine with a crucial edge in its conflict with Russia. One of the main defenses against first-person view drones is radio frequency jamming, which can disrupt the video link between the drone and its operator. However, drones equipped with machine vision for automatic target tracking are immune to jamming, making them highly effective in combat situations. They neutralize the work of the enemy's electronic warfare in most cases and allow you to hit the enemy even more effectively. We get some idea of the limitations of autonomous first-person view drones from a second attack video, which shows a strike on a BM-21 Grad truck-mounted multiple rocket launcher. A Russian soldier runs away from the truck as the first-person view drone approaches, and the drone seems to lock onto him. A video from another drone shows its momentum carries it into the target anyway. The deployment of autonomous attack drones represents a significant leap forward in military technology, changing the nature of warfare as we know it. The world watches closely to see the implications of these advancements. These drones have the potential to reshape the battlefield and provide Ukraine with a crucial advantage in its conflict with Russia.
Russian troops have designated a new target. They moved out with tanks from Bakhmut towards Chasiv Yar. The Ukrainians gave them a warm welcome. Watch this video. The missile follows exactly where the operator directs it. A hit and an instantly powerful explosion. The Ukrainians utilized their full arsenal. Javelins, Stugnas, kamikaze drones, artillery, and tanks. The Russian tanks were defeated. Let's take a look. Let's start with this attack. A group of Russian tanks and APCs launched an assault. The Ukrainians strike first. A Russian tank explodes. Here is its burning wreckage. These Russian tanks were the first in one of the attacks and were clearing Ukrainian mines. A Ukrainian drone attacks one of them. Next up is the second one. Ammunition ignites. Flames engulf the second Russian tank. An explosion occurs. The tanks turn into heaps of burning debris. Excellent work. Let's look at this misfortunate attack. A drone hits a Russian APC. And here's another APC. It was hit on the approaches to the city. A kamikaze drone approaches its target. A perfect hit. Target destroyed. Now it's the tank's turn. A drone aims and attacks it. The ammunition instantly ignites. The shells heat up, and a geyser of fire and sparks bursts from the tank. Another meat pot destroyed. This Russian tank was too close. The drone manages to hit it and stops its advance. Now check out this video. A Russian tank burns out after one of the attacks. The Ukrainians must stop this Russian APC. The operator chooses an angle for the attack and directs the drone at the target. A precise hit. A second drone attacks the APC. Now it's the Russian tank's turn. A drone hits the engine compartment, stopping the tank. The Ukrainians attack the tank again and utterly destroy it. Now this was a brilliant attack. A Russian APC ran over mines at full speed. A lone Russian tank returns from a failed assault. The Ukrainians tracked it down, a perfect target for a drone. Another attack. A third drone explodes above the tank, and this attack becomes fatal for the tank. Another tank. The operator loses connection with the drone, but it hits the target precisely. Then a second drone follows. One of the three APCs has already exploded, and these two are waiting their turn. The drone attack is successful. The APC is engulfed in flames. Let's take a look at this attack. See how skillfully the operator controls the drone? Such a landing guarantees a hit on the target. The APC is in flames. The target is destroyed. This is the work of the Ukrainian ATGM. The ammunition hung on a kamikaze drone penetrates from 300 to 600 millimeters of armor, and often reaches the ammunition. And to strike targets like this, Ukrainians regularly use fragmentation explosive charges. They are more effective in igniting a target. The Ukrainians have shown the world how to stand against evil. They faced an overwhelming enemy and held their ground. See that tank in the background? There it is. A Ukrainian kamikaze drone attacked the tank crew, which tried to hide in the trenches. A series of precise strikes was supposed to motivate the Russians to leave Ukraine as soon as possible. In conditions of military aid deficit, videos like this flickered. The Ukrainians emphasized their Stugna P ATGM. Not the first time during this war that I've seen this phenomenon. A Russian tank gets stuck in a trench, after which the Ukrainians happily destroy it. But this was not the end of the Russian tank's adventures. Hundreds of drones set out to repel attacks. One by one, the Russian APCs and tanks were destroyed. Very often, after encountering a drone, a Russian tank would explode, and even more of them burned. An FPV drone was planning to attack this target, but it was already engulfed in flames. Now, the abandoned tanks are dealt with by strike drones. After a grenade explodes in the tank, flames burst out. Now it's fully ablaze. The tank is destroyed. The second tank. Notice how heavily the Russians armored it. Dynamic armor on the turret, grills on the rear side, fine mesh around. But this didn't stop a grenade from getting inside. The flames grow stronger. The remaining shells detonate. Bradley came to stop the Russian infantry, which is crossing the field to storm Ukrainian positions. Even if the Russians reach another planting, it changes nothing. The cannon cuts down trees like thin branches. They offer no cover. This is an incident near Avdiivka. Ukrainian assault troops called for reinforcements. The Bradley IFV easily suppresses the Russian advance. And even if the Russians manage to occupy a building, there's no sense in hiding in it. Brad's cannon will riddle the building's walls. Another thwarted attack of Russian tanks. The kamikaze drone pursues the target and hits the tank in the most vulnerable part of the turret. This part of the Russian tank stores some of the ammunition. That's why they often explode after being hit by drones. The turret was thrown several meters from the tank. Excellent work. A Ukrainian kamikaze drone enters the Russian tank with precision. After a few seconds of agonizing wait, an explosion occurs. It seems the Ukrainians have started using self-destructing systems for drones in such cases. Smoke, fire, and a spectacular explosion. This video is yet another good example. The Russians should have long considered the storage of ammunition in the tank turret. Look at the force with which the turret is thrown up. At that moment, incredible pressure is created inside the tank. After the failed assault, the Russians abandoned their tank. Ukrainians use FPV drones to destroy it. One of the hits proves fatal for the Russian tank. Kamikaze drones can reach Russian tanks, armored personnel carriers, and infantry in the most inaccessible places or several kilometers from the front line. In this video, the Russians are preparing fortification structures, and engineering equipment is at work. The drone dives into an excavator, and an explosion occurs. The fuel ignites brilliantly. The job is done perfectly. Or this operation to destroy a BM-21 Grad in the rear. Special forces identify the target, launched a drone, and directed it to the Russian rocket artillery. The Russians tried to change their location, but they couldn't escape pursuit. The existence of this BM-21 Grad is terminated. Nearby, the drone detects a UAV, a precise hit on the target, fire, and detonation. Shark UAV plus HIMARS MLRS is a deadly combination. Let's take a look at a practical example. First, the drone tracks down future victims. When it arrives at the parking lot, the coordinates are transmitted to the HIMARS, which in turn fires a missile at each target. As a result, the Pion, Grad, and Masta S are destroyed. The author of the video signed these strikes as HIMARS strikes on the electronic warfare R-934 Borisogledsk II complex near Donetsk. I'm not sure that these are HIMARS. It kind of looks more like ordinary artillery, but it doesn't change the results. The complex completely destroyed. The Russians, having come under Ukrainian fire, requested evacuation, and an armored personnel carrier moved in. The Ukrainians saw this and launched several kamikaze drones. Now the Russians have no means of transportation and are stuck in a dangerous position. A Russian BMP-2. The reason why it was abandoned in the middle of the road is unknown. After the drone hits the armored personnel carrier, there is an explosion. Now, this trough is destroyed. Sharks tracked down an enemy location. 8 trucks, possibly for transporting personnel and ammunition. A second hit causes ammunition to ignite in one of the trucks. Vehicles nearby must have been damaged in the strikes as well. For dozens of soldiers, this day was their last. Excellent work by the reconnaissance and artillery. I don't know what the crew of this tank was doing, but they didn't do it for long. Suddenly, a Ukrainian drone knocked into the engine compartment and interrupted them. Another tank destroyed. This Buhanka was transporting weapons for Russian soldiers, but was stopped in time by a Ukrainian drone. This is a Russian Ural truck, and it has an automatic grenade launcher mounted on top. A kamikaze drone manages to hit a target that is already retreating, as in this case. And here's another T-90, which couldn't cross a puddle and got stuck in the mud. And this is all on one section of the front. Can you imagine how many resources Russia is burning in this war? The enemy is very strong. Yes, these are tracked crematoriums, and the Russian soldiers taking part in this? Lunatics. Here's the perfect example. The incendiary mixture falls on the netting, protecting the tank from grenades and bombs. The contents gradually drip onto the tank, and the flames spread to the hull. Let's move now to another section of the front where constant fighting is taking place. These two APCs were stopped by mines. After one of them explodes, another explosion occurs. Pay attention to this exact moment here. An armor plate falls on a mine, hits it, and another explosion happens. This APC was carrying ammunition to Russian soldiers at their positions. Another pair of APCs. The drone first approaches from the left side, but the hit doesn't yield the desired result. Then, the Ukrainians send a second drone. This hit becomes fatal. Both APCs are destroyed. The Ukrainians thwarted the Russians' attempt to evacuate their damaged tank. The strike drone returns with explosives to prevent such attempts in the future. The mission was completed successfully. Another Russian tank. The drone again hits the target precisely. This piece of Russian junk is also destroyed. The Russians are moving the 2S-19 Masta-S self-propelled howitzer into the forest to hide it from Ukrainian reconnaissance drones. The Ukrainians, however, see all of this. When the howitzer is securely hidden, the Ukrainians launch a HIMARS missile at it. The target is eliminated. These are the frames of the work of a Russian UAV team. A Ukrainian drone tracked a Russian reconnaissance drone and followed it to the command post. Then, the HIMARS took over. The second tank, not wanting to meet the same fate as its comrades, starts to reverse. The chances of escaping the battlefield seem slim, but they try anyway. The second Russian tank also explodes on the mines. The attack is a failure. Looks like another armored group. The first tank, equipped with a mine plow, leads the way, and for good reason. It hits the mines and stops. In these frames, Ukrainians finish off a previously halted Russian tank. A powerful explosion. No chance. Take, for example, this Russian tank. Its attempt to hide from the battlefield failed. Here's another good example. The tank was leaving, but the drone struck it and detonated the ammunition. For our channel sponsors, an uncensored video with unique footage has just been released. You can find the link in the description of this video and in the hint. This kamikaze drone circles around an MTLB abandoned by the Russians. The operator chooses the most favorable angle for the attack. He manages to land the drone right in the open hatch and destroys the Russian junk. In this place, a Russian tank hit mines and was immobilized, and then it awaited a quite obvious fate. Another Russian tank, and the same exact fate. Another one? Maybe it's time for us to create a ranking of the most beautiful destruction of Russian tanks by Ukrainian kamikaze drones. The legendary Buhanka and its adventures in Ukraine. Another one. It's so symbolic that it's standing near an Orthodox cross. And that's all. powerful. These Russians thought that the night would help them hide from Ukrainian drones. Ukrainians modify kamikaze drones, installing night vision cameras in them. Take a look at how clearly the Russian APC is visible at night. The second hit. Excellent work. This Russian tank, after enduring 4 bombs to the engine compartment, is headed for the scrapyard. This Russian tank drives over mines and becomes an easy target for the Javelin anti-tank missile. A precise hit. The missile penetrates inside and ignites the propellants. The tank, utterly destroyed. This tank joined the Russian army in 2022, but today, Ukrainians put an end to its tour on their lands. But these are not the only targets that Ukrainians have hit. 2 kamikaze drones destroyed this Strela 10 air defense system. And this is how HIMARS rockets struck the Grad MLRS. The second target was camouflaged, but that didn't hinder its detection and destruction. For the third target, Ukrainians waited for the right moment and then delivered a devastating blow with a kamikaze drone. The operator of this drone is a real ace. The hatch of the Russian tank was open less than half. Take another look at this throw. The tank catches fire. Take a look at this video. Is this not sheer madness? Russian tanks, armored personnel carriers, and soldiers are seemingly on a suicide mission against the Ukrainian defense. In this video, Ukrainian strike drones destroy what attacked the Ukrainians during the day. First, they burned a tank. And then a group of 3 units, a tank and 2 APCs. A perfect bonfire. Another tank. Some of the ammunition detonated, but it wasn't enough to tear the tank apart. This is what it all looks like the next day. This is the same place we saw in the previous video, where the drone was finishing off the Russian tanks. Yep, sometimes all that remains of a tank is a metal husk like this. Or as these 2 APCs changed color due to the high temperature of the fire. Everything inside incinerated. And here are the tanks from the beginning of the video. A similar situation befell this Russian tank. 1 drone was enough to set it on fire. And here are some more beautiful shots of burning Russian junk. And this T-80 was instantly reduced to molecules after encountering a drone. What idiot allowed this foolishness? Let me explain what happened here. The APC brought TM-62 anti-tank mines and unloaded them nearby. The fatal mistake was the delay. They should have retreated immediately. From the explosion, the APC did a sideways somersault. Here's another moment. Ukrainians were sure that Russian infantry was hiding here, and made a precise strike on this building. And here, the Russians knew what was waiting for them, so they tried to hide. But they underestimated the skill of the FPV operator, who aimed the drone right at them. Take another look at how spectacular that was. After the occupants broke through the first line of defense, the AFU fielded an experienced 47 Mechanized Brigade, which was equipped with Western weapons and was able to stop the enemy. The situation in Avdiivka was not bad for Ukraine. They controlled the flanks, height, and presence of troops in the territory of coke, and the chemical plant made life 10 times more difficult for the enemy. The reason why it was abandoned in the middle of the road is unknown. After the drone hits the armored personnel carrier, there is an explosion. Now, this trough is destroyed. One more episode. One of the Russian armored personnel carriers is already engulfed in flames. The second one pulls off the road and stops? For what? The third vehicle starts moving, and at that moment, the Ukrainians hit the target exactly. Excellent work by the artillery. Novodonetsk, the Donetsk region. A Russian column moves towards Ukrainian positions. One of the tanks explodes. What do you think destroyed it? You'd be surprised. A Ukrainian tank drove alone against the column and hit the Russian enemy with an apt shot. The Ukrainians don't stop and continue to deliver blow after blow. At some point, the tank casts a thermal curtain and starts backing up. Apparently, the Russians tried to aim an ATGM at it. The Russians lose another tank. Hopefully, we'll see more of this story later. Another unsuccessful assault by the Russian army. Even after the BMP is hit, the tank continues to move forward. This is his last mistake. The assault has failed. The armored personnel carrier and the tank are destroyed. And this is already a jeweled hit from Ukrainian artillery. This Russian tank paid dearly for stopping. A precise hit from 155mm ammunition turns the tank into a piece of metal. Let's start with 2 episodes of failed assaults. 3 Russian tanks decided to attack the positions of the Ukrainian armed forces. The first and the second tank are hit by the Ukrainians using ATGMs, and this Russian tank can't escape death. The second drone secures this result. Another armored personnel carrier arrives to evacuate the Russian soldiers. A third drone flies in to prevent it. Fortunately for the Russians, the drone does not reach them in time due to heavy interference. And how about this beauty? A kamikaze drone strikes an abandoned Russian armored personnel carrier. The damage causes a fire, and then an explosion. Beautiful footage of burning Russian junk. Here's another piece of Russian junk. The drone flies right inside. The fire does its job. When the drone returned, it found this. And who do we have here? This drone perfectly flies into the armored personnel carrier, and then it's the same old story. And here's another Russian tank. The operator perfectly executes the task and destroys the tank. There's another target nearby, also a tank. Watch how beautifully it explodes after the drone's hit. Another example. 2 Russian tanks were stopped by Ukrainian warriors. Ukrainians use kamikaze drones to finish them off completely. This Russian APC decided to pave its own way. Relying on luck, the APC rushes towards the trench, but explodes on mines. This venture cost the Russians another APC. In the tree line, a Russian tank stops. A fatal mistake. After the first hit, it accelerates and charges towards the Ukrainians. The second hit immobilizes it. It immediately catches fire. Take a look at these flames. The Russian tank is destroyed. The negligence of this APC became fatal. Venturing into direct fire from the Ukrainian tank, there was no escape for it. One shot, and the target is hit. Impact and explosion. This is how it looks from the tank's perspective. Such precise work deserves a thumbs up. The Russian column of tanks and APCs was spotted by the Ukrainians. They split into groups and attack from several directions at once. The first to come under fire is an APC. Next, the Ukrainians destroy a tank. This APC runs over mines. It turned into a crematorium on tracks. And this is a hit from a Javelin missile. The affected tank moves about 10 meters and stops. The Russians try to flee, but run into mines. Out of the entire column, only this armored personnel carrier manages to survive. It crosses the road and gets stuck. Today, we're going to dive into this madness and try to answer the question, what's wrong with the Russian army? It all starts with the insane attacks of Russian armored groups. The crew of this tank doesn't realize it's walked into a trap. Not only are Ukrainian soldiers to the left of the tank, but there are also surprises laid out on the road ahead. By the way, a Ukrainian soldier missed the tank with an anti-tank guided missile, but the mines saved the day. As I promised, I'm releasing part 2. Let's take a look at the madness that the Russians are engaging in. Klishchivka. At this point, the Russians have become more active and are trying to regain control of the settlement. A Russian armored strike group is moving across the fields towards the settlement. A Ukrainian drone is performing reconnaissance and adjusting artillery. Kaboom! The Russian guys are starting to have some serious problems on their hands. Ukrainian artillery begins to work the stalled column. 2 Russian armored personnel carriers are engulfed in flames. An immobilized tank stands nearby. The assault has failed. Near Soledar, Russian paratroopers went on a daring assault. A BMD moves towards the AFU positions and fires from a machine gun. A Stugna P ATGM missile hits the vehicle. The second missile kills the armored personnel carrier. The second armored personnel carrier with a paratrooper suffered no less. The Russians have resorted to a new tactic. They sent an armored group to assault during the night. The Ukrainians were scouting and did not miss the moment. A Russian tank explodes on mines. The 4th tank was damaged as a result of blowing up the previous tanks. As a result, the Russians lost 4 vehicles. The northern flank of Avdiivka. The Russian column leaves on a combat mission. The first armored personnel carrier goes to scout the road and runs into a mine barrier. The artillery hits the Russian vehicles very accurately. At some point, the Russians realize that it is madness to keep moving forward and begin to turn around. The second column advances to the assault. The Russian tank succeeds in destroying the Ukrainian mines. The second tank decides to repeat this insane challenge and turns into a pile of scrap metal. And what's this? Did HIMARS end up in the neighborhood? That doesn't stop the Russians. The third column continues to move on. Panic among the Russians. 2/3 of the armored vehicles destroyed. This leads to reckless action and more casualties. The Ukrainians sure are giving these Russians hell. 2 armored personnel carriers and 2 tanks move towards the Ukrainian positions. Ukrainians open fire and hit the armored personnel carrier. Probably they used an ATGM or a kamikaze drone. The tanks move off the road, changing the direction of their attack. The second armored personnel carrier is also immobilized. The tanks continue their attempt to flank the vehicle. They receive orders and begin to retreat, while firing on Ukrainian positions. The assault fails. The Kharkiv region. A suicidal attack of Russian tanks. The first tank, with a minesweeper, falls victim to an ATGM. It is stopped in its tracks, as well as the column that was moving behind it. The Ukrainians hit an armored personnel carrier with the second shot. A kamikaze drone flies towards the stopped column. It crashes into the tank, penetrates the armor, and leads to the explosion of the ammunition. The column is destroyed. But let's return to armored personnel carriers and Russian tanks. More footage of the magical transformation of a Russian tank into a pile of scrap metal. The Avdiivka region. A Russian T-90M tank assaults Ukrainian positions. Ukrainians deploy artillery to hinder this. As things heat up, the tank starts to retreat. At that moment, it's caught by a kamikaze drone. The modern Russian tank is destroyed. And here's a cargo truck and an armored car, Tiger. They both become easy prey for kamikaze drones. A Russian cargo truck brought ammunition to the positions, and the Ukrainians immediately destroyed it. What a pity. Now it's the turn of this Soviet junk, a T-62 tank from 1967. This is the kind of scrap the Russians are pulling to the front. Now it's the APC's turn. One grenade and $400,000 turns into scrap metal. A drone drops explosives into an APC. A fire starts immediately. A powerful explosion and detonation of ammunition occur. Am I the only one who likes watching such footage? That combination of fire and armored vehicles. There's something mesmerizing about it. It's target number 2's turn. The APC instantly ignites, and a powerful explosion follows immediately. I want to watch it again. Excellent. A crater is left in its place. Target 3. The flame gradually intensifies. Ammunition starts to detonate. It's beautiful. Here are 2 Russian tanks from one of the failed attacks I showed at the beginning. The Ukrainians target a T-90 tank. This video shows the perfect performance of a 155mm smart projectile. Pay attention to the accuracy. You can clearly see the trajectory of the projectile in these shots. For example, this is the defeat of a Russian tank by a Javelin missile. There was no detonation. Apparently, it was without ammunition. Abandoned Russian equipment must be destroyed. Kamikaze drones are excellent at this task. Look how this drone neatly flies inside the AFV. Nice work. Naturally, it was not without epic explosions. This is how beautifully the Russian AFV turned into scrap metal. Also, this Russian tank. Nice bang. Another tank of militants. A Ukrainian soldier videotapes the detonation of the tank. Near Sivur. The Russians have tried to advance on this point. Let's see how well they did. We see that the first armored personnel carrier has been reduced to pieces of junk. That doesn't stop the armored group that followed it. The second armored vehicle explodes in the same place as the first. The Russians begin the attack. The tank goes first, followed by the BMP. The armored personnel carrier continuously fires at them. At some point, the armored personnel carrier turns into a cloud of fire and shrapnel. What weapon do you think is capable of this? Another group of soldiers rushes to assist. Are the Russians running out of tanks? This attack used only APCs. The first target is hit. While these Russians were thinking about what to do next, another drone came in. And here's the strike on the third APC. 3 drones at once. Another APC. Beautiful. And the final target. This one got the farthest, but it didn't save it from destruction. Excellent work. Facing such fierce resistance, the Russians decide to hide their APC in a garage. 3 kamikaze drones attack the target. The APC was burned. If you look closely, you can see its turret. The northern region. APCs fall into a trap. A Ukrainian kamikaze drone first blows up one. The second target. This APC thought it would find protection in a strip of forest. The APC is burned. And this is a strike on Russian logistical support. A truck carrying supplies. The Ukrainians sent a second drone. After meeting the truck, it flared up. Fire destroyed the entire vehicle. The Russians stopped to fix their truck. Ukrainians took advantage of the pause and delivered a devastating strike. Ukrainian drones come to spook the enemy. The first target is TM-62 anti-tank mines. What a powerful explosion! And here's the fourth grad. The fifth target. Another strike by HIMARS. The grad is destroyed. And that's not all. Another MLRS. And take a look at the fire after being hit. Another excellent fireworks display. This series concludes with this strike. Some very effective work. How about this visit by a kamikaze drone to an enemy bunker? I don't know what was stored there, but it burned and detonated for a long time. A beautiful spectacle. The Russian radar Yastreb with an astonishing cost of $250 million. Ukrainians didn't hesitate to use HIMARS missiles to destroy such a rare and important target. The OSA anti-aircraft missile system is moving towards the forest to hide from the Ukrainians. As you might have guessed, the Russians didn't succeed. The Russian army's attack, meant to bring strategic success, did not go as planned. Russian tanks were blowing up, burning, and exploding again. Let's take a closer look. Tanks, APCs, and airborne troops, all ready for battle, split into small groups. The Ukrainians are using cluster bombs. An ATGM hits a Russian APC. A tank deploys troops in an open field. Now, this APC is nothing more than a meat grinder. The second group is just hundreds of meters from Ukrainian positions. They were met with a surprise left overnight. Pay attention to this synchronization. And these are the daredevils who went on solo attacks. Pure madness. The third group consists of APCs and the madmen inside of them. A precise ATGM hit stops the Russian armored vehicle. A tank and 3 APCs. The Ukrainians are simply picking off tanks with javelins. Russian tanks are engulfed in flames. The attack goes on. APCs rush to take cover. It almost made it. But then, a Ukrainian kamikaze drone catches up with the APC. Now, check out this video. This column was just decimated. Ukrainians strike with cluster bombs to destroy the enemy's manpower. It's rather effective. This APC made an unforgivable mistake. From just 10 to 20 meters away, Ukrainians destroy it with an RPG shot. Such bravery deserves a like. And here's an ATGM Stugna P missile nearly hitting a Russian APC. The Russians try to dig in at one of the settlements in the Avdiivka region. A dozen soldiers disembark on the village's outskirts. An unpleasant surprise awaits them on the other side of the village. As the soldiers leave the APC, it drives away. Notice this moment. A kamikaze drone flies over the APC. The drone continues to tail the Russian armored vehicle. The operator waits for the right moment to deliver a crushing blow. The APC is immobilized. Another Ukrainian drone strikes. The APC is destroyed. One hit was enough to start a fire. The drone returns and discovers the debris that used to be this tub. Another hero, a tank nicknamed Kuzbas. The Russians tried to protect it from all sides. And maybe it could have withstood one or two more hits from a kamikaze drone, but it couldn't save it from a grenade. The fire did its job. Kuzbas burned to ashes. At first, I thought it was a javelin or anti-tank mines, but no, it was a Ukrainian kamikaze drone. Wow, what a powerful explosion! And here's what happened to the Russian tank that was leading. First, the Ukrainians immobilized it, then directed a kamikaze drone at it and burned it. It's no secret that Ukrainians have managed to secure positions on the left bank of Kherson. It was these positions that Russian tanks aimed to storm. The Ukrainians don't have heavy machinery here, but they do have kamikaze drones. A drone strikes the tank's turret, and not even an armored shield can handle that. The shaped charge reaches the ammunition, causing a massive detonation. Let's return to the destruction of equipment. I've got more to show. The drone dives into its target. The APC is instantly engulfed in flames. In 30 minutes, the Russian APC was completely burned out. That's simply the amount of time it took the Ukrainians to replace the battery and return. This is a Russian tank. And this is the same tank through the eyes of a kamikaze drone. A perfect hit. A Ukrainian kamikaze drone inspected the Russian tracked crematorium. Or take a look at this video. 5 kamikaze drones attack a Russian tank. The 5th hit becomes fatal for the Russian armor. A crater is formed in the tank's location. Can you imagine the power of that explosion? I think that after such a strike, this tank is not combat ready.